Hey there, this is Bruce McGill, a.k.a. Jack Dalton from MacGyver.
Oh, Mac, you haven't changed, not a bit.
Neither of you, Jack.
And I love listening to Making Fun of MacGyver. Love listening to Making Fun of MacGyver. Making fun of MacGyver.
Tonight, while grieving over the loss of his friend, MacGyver gets a visit from his former nemesis who tries to finish what he started years ago. And then there's just me grieving over the loss of my dignity as I introduce yet another idiotic episode of Making Fun of MacGyver. It's Making Fun of MacGyver, a rib-tickling takedown of our favorite 80s adventure show, The People's Court. Ah, come on, it's MacGyver. Starring Sam Jordan as the skeptic and Jeffrey Hess as the scientist.
Name's MacGyver.
Welcome, everybody, to Making Fun of MacGyver, the show where we recap, review, and lovingly ridicule every episode of the original series. I'm Sam Jordan. I'm your host, and as usual, I'm joined by my fellow MacGyverite, the carabiner of the crew, Jeffrey Hess.
I'm the one who holds it all together.
And tonight, special guest, the free soloer of the squad. It's Vivian from Taiwan. Hi, Vivian.
Hi, I'm Vivian.
My charming human beings, I have a question for both of you. Are you ready to see more rock climbing than Mrs. Dwayne Johnson does in the bedroom?
Hey-o!
Yeah.
Vivian, are you ready? Good, because we're moments away from Making Fun of MacGyver. It's our 71st episode, and tonight we're talking about MacGyver Season 3, Episode 8, The Widowmaker. But first, it's our opening gambit. All right, so everybody, welcome Vivian from Taiwan to the show. Yay! Vivian, we know you a little bit now from our Patreon hangout sessions, but a lot of listeners might not know who you are, why you're here with us. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what your history is with MacGyver, and just give us the Vivian FAQ here.
Yeah, so I'm Vivian. So I come from Taiwan. I have been watching MacGyver for 12 years, which is since I was in primary school. So my mom introduced me to MacGyver when I was like 5th grade, and I was totally in love with it, with all the fun, all the creativities. So yeah, and then I found Making Fun of MacGyver on YouTube, and I love the opening gambit. So then I become a listener and a patron, and I'm so happy to co-host with you all.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here. Yeah, you saw the video clip of us doing the new lyrics to the MacGyver song, right?
Yeah.
This one that was so fun. For us has somehow exploded. All the other videos are toiling in the hundreds of views, maybe, or a couple thousands, and this one's last checked up to 61,000 views. So that's how you discovered us. We're so glad you can't believe that, can you?
No, it's the dumbest shit ever.
But yeah, so I don't want to get too personal, but I mean, not only are you in Taiwan, which is unusual for us, but you're like younger, right? You're like 22, 23, something like that?
Yes, I'm 22.
Right. So this is fascinating that this show from the 1980s, from America, has resonated so strongly with you. You know, we got the title of the show, Making Fun of MacGyver, and we do that because it deserves lots of ridicule. But Jeff, we both have seen and believe in the power of this show to be more than just a silly adventure action, show from the 80s. It's just stretches the globe and it inspires people in a multitude of ways, and this is just really fascinating.
2,500 years ago the Buddha was born. 2,000 years ago Jesus Christ was born, and about 2.5 years ago this show was born. And I think in 2,500 years they'll probably be talking about us probably on the same level as the Buddha and Jesus Christ. Okay. See, I was backpatting MacGyver there, and you just backpatted us. Oh, no, it's all about me, baby.
Okay. Well, I was actually complimenting, the original MacGyver. But Vivian, happy to have you here. And this is an episode you chose here tonight. Why did you choose The Widowmaker?
The Widowmaker is my favorite episode because I think it is a hurt and comfort. It's a very traumatic episode, but it gives me also a lot of strength because now I'm studying and also doing human rights work, which can be very frustrating because you see people, especially your friends, suffer, but you can't do anything. But I think Meg also suffer and Meg also can be vulnerable sometimes, and that's okay. And you're still yourself, and you still have your strength, and I think that's what fascinates me the most.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great insight, and I love what you have to say about why you chose this episode, because this really is the first time where we get into any of Mac's baggage from all these people that die around him. And the show gets pretty real there for a minute. So I'm fascinated that's your reason for picking it, and you're right, absolutely right about that.
So Vivian joining us as co-host tonight as a perk through Patreon. She's one of our handful of patrons. And if you want monthly bonus episodes or video chat hangout sessions or your own seat as a co-host for an episode with us, go to patreon.com/makingfunofmacgyver for all of the details. All right, we've gotten to know Vivian. Now let's get to know some viewer mail. So we frequently ask for people to review our show, either on Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you listen to, because it does help with engagement and viewership, and people might notice your podcast if it's got a few reviews, Spotify. So we've got really just a handful out there on the World Wide Web. But I recently saw a couple that I had missed over the past year or two, and I just wanted to call attention to them, brag a little bit. So August 31st of this year, Vince Ham wrote this, titled "A Genuinely Fun Podcast." Fun in quotes, though. Not sure why you put the fun. He says, "These guys have true affection for and knowledge of MacGyver. They have the right balance of organization, creativity, and humor. They amusingly point out the cheesy aspects of the original MacGyver while unabashedly appreciating when the show is genuinely entertaining or moving. This podcast is an absolute recommend for anyone that loves MacGyver. Fresno, you know." Now, now you did not write that, right, Jeff?
No. You would never catch me writing that.
Okay, but you live in Fresno.
I do, and you know.
So, is that a thing people say in Fresno?
It's something they say when something really shitty happens here, because Fresno has a reputation for being the worst town in California, and so it's like, for example, I saw one that was going around the internet, and it's like, "I'm from Fresno where we have to lock up the soap," and it was a picture of a grocery store where they had put all of the just soap, regular soap, behind glass. You had to get someone to get the soap out for you. That's a Fresno moment.
Okay, so do you remember this line from a famous movie? It's way before your time, but since you know movies so well. Don't worry, blank. It's just blank. It's just Fresno. There's nothing you can do. It's just Fresno.
First of all, that is from Chinatown. It's one of the most famous lines, and I can't remember the character's name, but he just I think it's Jack, isn't it?
I might be Jack, yeah. And it's played by Jack Nicholson.
Oh, I haven't heard about that.
You've heard of Chinatown?
No.
Okay. It has nothing to do with China, though. It's about Los Angeles, a neighborhood of Los Angeles, I believe. So thank you to Vince Ham for that lovely review. We really appreciate that. Let's see. There's one more that wasn't written by a friend or a family member. And this name is Popoli, June of 21. Somehow I missed it. Headline, "Amazing Podcast. These guys are absolutely hilarious and have great chemistry. Love all the 80s references." See, when people are that friendly and nice to the show, I feel like it's got to be a friend or a relative. But no one has ever come forth to claim that they went and did the hard work of writing 2 sentences on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. But if you would like to do that, it would really help us out. Throw up some 5 stars, say a couple of words, and it would help the show. So thank you. Now, Vivian, you are a patron in at the Swiss Army knife tier. That's about as much as you can do to help the show. But have you ever given us a review anywhere?
Yes, I review on Spotify and also on YouTube, under a lot of videos and Facebook, Twitter.
Yes, I've seen some of your comments before. Right. Yeah. Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you. Well, I was going to try and attack you for that, but no, I can't. I mean, you've done everything we could ask.
Yes, I just support you in everywhere.
All right, guys, let me take you back now to Monday, November 16th, 1987. So the number one movie in the country is something called The Running Man, the dystopian action film directed by Paul Michael Glaser, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Maria Conchita Alonso, Richard Dawson from Family Feud fame, and Jesse Ventura. The film's story about a television show where convicted criminal runners must escape death at the hands of professional killers is very loosely based on the 1982 novel of the same name written by Stephen King and published under the pseudonym Richard Bachman. The Running Man made $38 million at the box office. Roger Ebert, this was the big movie reviewer in America, Vivian. Roger Ebert was huge. He gave the film 2.5 stars out of 4. That all the action scenes are versions of the same scenario, but he praised Dawson's performance, stating that he has at last found the role he was born to play. I've never seen The Running Man. Jeff, you nodded as if you might have seen it.
Oh, maybe a dozen times or more.
Wow. So you enjoy it.
Oh yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, it's
Okay.
very fun. Yeah. All the characters, all the killers are like really wacky and they have these zany things that they do, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is like just coming into his peak, so I think it's before Total Recall. But after Predator, so he's really just launching into stardom, and he's fantastic in it, and it's very fun. But Ebert's right; its concept is limited.
Vivian, have you ever seen any movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger? Are you familiar with who that is?
I know who it is, but I haven't watched any movies yet.
He hasn't had a movie out in a long time.
Yeah, he was big in the 80s and 90s, so I don't think there's anything you need to see at this point. You got MacGyver under your belt, you know. Yeah. So that's the number one movie, and the number one song in the U.S. is I Think We're Alone Now by Tiffany. Now, Jeff sang this a couple of weeks ago, and I would normally take it because we're having a season-long battle, but when we have a guest here, we like to let them sing. So Vivian's going to sing this. Now, there's no way you've ever heard this song before. Have you, Vivian? Until you get ready for it. But
Yes.
you got the lyrics there. You got the karaoke version. You're going to sing on your... And how you feeling? You think you're going to do okay?
Yeah, I hope so. I think I'll be okay.
Are you a good singer otherwise? Do you have some singing skills or not really?
Not really. I actually listen to 80s rock music, so I like Bon Jovi, but I haven't heard about Tiffany before.
She really just had the one big song, and that was it.
That's what they say when we're together and watch how you play. They don't understand, so we are running just as fast as we can, holding on to one another's hand, trying to get away into the night, and you put your arms behind me.
Woo! Yeah. Wow. Congratulations. That's pretty good for a song you had never heard of until like a day or two ago, right?
What do you think about it?
Yes.
Is it a good song or not a good song?
I think it's a perfect song for like dancing,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it's a song that is easy to sing.
But it does make me want to dance.
And we did. What? Who's like your favorite musical group or artist? I know we probably won't know them, but do you have one?
Oh yeah, I love Avril Lavigne.
What? Okay.
She's in the middle of a comeback. She has a new album out, right?
Yes, I love her new album. I think I love the things in the 2000s, and I also saw there's some new concerts of My Chemical Romance. I'm so excited.
Okay.
I hope
Oh.
that we one day are able to go to the US to watch the concert.
So it's Monday. It's November, what did I say, 16? November 16, 1987. 8 o'clock that night on ABC. It's MacGyver Season 3, Episode 8, The Widowmaker. And now I gladly hand over the reins of the show to the next level of MacGyver narrators, the gentleman Jeffrey Hess.
Well, I won't be free soloing this. Hopefully you guys will catch me if I fall. And we begin with a lovely mountain view as Mac monologues to explain Why on earth he's on the side of a mountain?
What are you doing up here? He asked himself. Don't you remember you hate heights? Or is it that heights hate you? I could never figure out which was which. But either way, I was determined that today I was going to overcome it all. I had a sizable rock face called the Widowmaker to climb, and an expert to show me how to do it. Wishful thinking. There's an old climber's saying, it's not the fall that kills you, it's the sudden stop.
So Mac is climbing up the side of the Widowmaker, which is allegedly a legendary sheer rock cliff that he is, and this will come as a complete surprise. Are you guys ready for this? He's with an attractive brunette. I know, it's hard to believe. So he's climbing the side of the rock face pretty badly, and she's giving him advice, telling him how to use his chalk bag, telling him which handholds to go so he can climb up. And he gets to a ledge where she's sitting, and she confronts him and says, Mac, I want a date. I want to have a relationship with you. We've been friends all this time. And they both agree, we're best friends, all this stuff. And MacGyver turns her down.
Now, this is Mike, not the Mike that left the show.
Cream me again.
But it is the Mike that was seen in MacGyver Jack of Lies, season 1 or season 2?
This is from the Mike on Mike episode.
Is that right? Yes, you're right. Right. It's season 2, Vivian?
Yes, season 2, episode
it's season 2,
6.
Jack of Lies. It averaged a 7 between all of us. I think you gave it an 8. But, Jeff, I'll forgive you for not realizing it's his best friend from that episode because it was played then by Patricia McPherson. So once again, Fiona Jackson, you've chosen someone different to play the same character. Now we got Lisa Bayliss playing Michelle Mike Forrester. So again, this is Max, this is Max, longtime female best friend who now wants more. But remember the episode, the three of them, Jack, Mac, and Mike, like looking over. And that's the episode where Jack flies off into the wilderness, over the ocean. But so it's more than just an attractive brunette. This is his longtime best friend who now on the side of a mountain is telling him, now I want more. Let's go for the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a real choice time to broach that topic. Either of you rock climbers? Are there mountains in Taiwan? I don't know.
Yeah, there are mountains in Taiwan, but I don't do mountain climbing.
Yeah, rock climbing is huge around Fresno because I live about an hour and a half from an enormous mountain range, and I have a number of friends who go, and they've invited me, and no thanks, for reasons that are about to become very clear. So she's climbing. So he turns her down, and she turns her face away because she's crying. Because he broke her heart. So she basically leaves his ass behind and climbs to get up to the next spot. And she goes to hook her rope onto the carabiner that's going to keep her safe, and she misses. And that momentum causes her to slip. And she yells at Mac that I'm falling. And Mac does a really dramatic belay brace where he's trying to stop her, and he manages to arrest her fall as she's dangling in midair. But there's an equipment failure, and Mike falls to her death.
Much like our Mike fell to his death.
Happy, happy, joy, joy!
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
So I forgot how often television shows in the 80s just randomly off people. This show, the MacGyver just randomly kills people in gotta be 60% episodes.
Yeah, and then I did enjoy the dummy falling down the side of the cliff. It wasn't as bad as that season opener one because it was from further away, but definitely that body was not human. They didn't kill a person or throw a corpse over for the sake of realism, unfortunately.
So we cut back to the Phoenix where Pete is there and Nikki is there, but critically, MacGyver is not.
Did MacGyver call?
No. Wasn't he at the funeral?
No. And he's not at his houseboat either. For all we know, he's probably still holed up in my cabin. Well, I guess I've got to give him a few more days.
This is serious, huh?
Yeah, it's serious. MacGyver is running. The funny thing about running is you always end up taking yourself with you.
Listen, it took a chopper rescue team to get him off that mountain. He must have been paralyzed with fear.
Maybe. And he's probably blaming himself for what happened. And God knows what did happen. I can't explain it. Mike was an expert. You know, she'd climbed the Widowmaker twice before.
She and MacGyver went way back, didn't they?
Oh. They were the best of friends.
our Mike was an expert broadcaster, and we were the best of friends.
Don't you be jiving me, sucker.
Is this going to be the whole episode?
I didn't plan it out that way, but I'm seeing some similarities.
So Pete goes to visit Mac at Pete's cabin, where Pete has a cabin. And Pete tries to give him a pep talk about coming back to work, and Mac is furious. And he is really, really mean to Pete and rejects him and sends him away. You guys, have you ever seen Mac act like this before?
Not really, right? No. But I gotta say, it was a little. Well, actually, no. There was. What was the episode? Was it Friends? At the office, where they surprise him and he wants to retire. Remember? I don't know if that's the episode name, but I think.
Yeah, I think it's Friends.
Yeah, so it's the Friends episode, and that was his birthday party.
Yeah.
Right. His birthday party, and it was pretty much the same thing, right? So they had the one-on-one, and Mac wants to retire, and Pete. I don't know why you want to retire when you have a surprise birthday party thrown by a fake hostage taking by Jack with a machete, and then you get to the office and you're like, yeah, you know what, I'm good on this. But that's the only other time that Jack and Pete have kind of gone after each other like this, and I gotta say, I like seeing other elements of MacGyver's personality in the show. It makes him more human. It gives you a break from the action, and I just like that stuff. So that's an instant plus for me with this episode, is that MacGyver is opening up, sitting down, talking about feelings and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate that.
And Vivian, you said you have done some human rights work where you've encountered situations like this. Have you seen people react like this when they lose friends and have difficult situations where they retreat into themselves?
Yeah, I think that's quite common. And another kind of way is like saying, oh, I'm like fine, I'm going back to work, doing like everything, I'm just normal, don't ask.
And for Mac, it's like one after another. I mean, this is a guy who goes to the grocery store and all of a sudden he's saving pregnant women from gangsters. I mean, this guy gets in all kinds of trouble all the time.
Well, let's not forget, last episode, he has to deal. He's still recovering from the loss of Pepe. Pepe Dirty Sanchez. His body's just been probably put in the ground. The national holiday is just forming. The petition drive is going. We've got it going. But Pepe Sanchez just died on Mac probably a week ago. And now here he is losing Mike.
And the episode before that, he had a friend who was going to meet the insurance investigator, and he got run down by a truck.
And few episodes before that, his ex-girlfriend Lisa just died in his arms.
That's right. Lisa got murked and then came back as Nikki.
Right, true. Right. So maybe Mike will come back as a different character. That's the bright side.
Maybe she comes back as our new co-host.
Reincarnation happens within weeks in the MacGyver-verse.
So we cut to the houseboat where someone is breaking in, and this someone has a horribly scarred face and a sick-ass knife, and it's very clearly Murdoch. And he begins ripping the place apart, and he's finding clues about where Mac and Nikki are, and he finds out. He hears some messages on the phone. Oh, we're at this mountain, and he hears about Ellard's store, and there's a brochure that has Ellard's on it. Gives him an address, so Murdoch's on the way, but not before he takes out a torch and burns R.I.P. MacGyver into the wall and takes a picture. And that, believe it or not, is the end of Axminster 1.
Yeah, good start. I was on board. I like, as soon as you see Murdoch, just like when you see Jack, it's usually an instant boost in terms of the excitement. But boy, the cheesiness of Murdoch taking out a blowtorch to carefully write R.I.P. MacGyver in the wall. Like, okay, fine.
And who everyone thought was dead. They even have to do a couple reminder shots in the episode because they don't get to rewatch him. And this has been a year and a half or two had passed. And like, you remember he was in a dress and he tried to blow MacGyver up, and Pete and MacGyver had this big thing. And so they're really making Murdoch a thing.
But this is number 2, right? This is the second appearance for Murdoch, right? It's not 3, right? It's
yes.
Still number 2? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But, and I'm not spoiling anything here, the gimmick continues, and the gimmick is that he dies at the end of every episode.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So we begin Axminster 2, where we're at the Phoenix with Pete, Nikki, and if you look closely in the background, Stubbins and Marlowe are also there. And they are trying to figure out, the four of them, how to get through to Mac. And Pete decides to go ahead and let Nikki give it a shot. Here's how you can get up to the cabin. Why don't go ahead and see if you can shake him out of his malaise. So at the Widowmaker general store, Nikki has stopped to take a break, and she meets the caretaker of the store, the shopkeep, whose name escapes me. And he's identifying with what MacGyver's going through. He says, I was in World War II, I was on a battleship, it sank, and a bunch of my friends died, and I get where Mac is coming from.
As I was saying, these rock climbers are a crazy bunch, a breed apart. But Mike, she was one of the sensible ones. Oh, not that climbing the Widowmaker makes any sense to me at all, but Mike, she didn't have no death wish, you know. She knew what she was doing, or she wouldn't have taken MacGyver up there in the first place.
Has MacGyver come down here?
No, he's just been keeping to himself. Oh, some of the locals have seen him now and then, hiking, fishing, whatnot. I know what he's going through. I was on a destroyer, went down the Battle of Midway, lost some good buddies. Well, you put them to bed, but you never forget them. You know what I mean?
Moving stuff by the shopkeep of the... A lot of unexpected emotions come up in this episode. It's very... it's not quite the lighthearted episode that most MacGyver episodes are.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate this guy's service. Even though IMDb says there was no such ship in wherever he said he was, there's like only one ship sank, and it couldn't have been this one. So he might just be making things up. So maybe I don't appreciate his service, but I appreciate his imagination. Ellard's store owner guy.
So Nikki goes to get in her truck, and the truck doesn't start when she's approached by a stranger who keeps his face very deeply shadowed, and he is finding out where she's going, and she explains that she's headed up to this cabin, and immediately Murdoch obviously it's Murdoch. You guys realize that? And so immediately he knows where he can follow her to Mac's cabin where he's been hiding out. So Nikki does go to the cabin where Mac is sitting on the pier looking out over the water like he's 14 years old, throwing rocks into the water. And Nikki, rather than taking the soft approach that Pete took, comes in like the hammer.
I hear you talk as if you pushed Mike off the mountain.
Hey! You know nothing about it.
That's why I came here. Tell me about it.
You're staying, I'm leaving.
That's right. Go ahead. Let it make a basket case out of you. That way you don't have to be any good to anybody, not even yourself. Look at me. You've got one hell of a nerve thinking you're responsible for what happened. Mike was the expert climber, not you. Mike made the mistake, not you.
You don't understand.
No, I don't. I don't understand how you can go on blaming yourself. You didn't push her, did you?
Yes. Yes, I did. I pushed her away when she needed something from me. I hurt her, and she fell.
And there wasn't anything you could do to save her, was there?
It's not as simple as that.
You know something? The funny thing about running away is that you've got to take yourself with you.
So, actually, I do want to take a moment to say, I think this is their best scene together of any time they've been on screen together.
Yes.
And when I see them interact like this, I can totally get how, if you met them, if you're doing, casting and you saw them in person interacting with each other, this can work great. And then they write the characters out and they just butcher their relationship. And if it were more like this, then I think I would like her inclusion a lot better.
Vivian, what are your thoughts on Nikki? This is her third or fourth episode we've seen her in. And Claire, not a fan. And both me and Jeff are they're making them fight too much about petty things. But what were your thoughts on Nikki's run on MacGyver?
I like her character design in the first place in Fire and Ice. I think MacGyver in the the whole TV series is in lack of some strong female characters. Mike was supposed to be strong, but then she fell off the mountain. Nikki was supposed to be strong, and then she starting from GX1, she's like a whiner during the whole episode. And also I think I don't want to talk about the later episodes because there'll be a later thing,
You're
but
right.
I think her character setting, it changed so much. In every episode, it looks like different person. Sometimes she's strong, sometimes not.
Yeah.
Sometimes she's so impulsive, and sometimes so conservative. So I think the writers don't know what to do with Nikki, so then they decide to cut her off in the end.
Very well said. Yeah.
You're absolutely right about that. Every time she's on screen, she's different.
Yes, and even her hairstyle was different.
Well, let me go on record as saying this is my favorite version of her. I like the one who's going to, people are so wary around MacGyver. He's such a nice guy. Everyone's, kind of soft shoes around him, and she, grabs him by the lapels and shakes him a little bit. I like that.
Yeah, I also think this is the best episode of Nikki, and I think I saw on the report saying, the ABC wants to create some kind of sexual tensions. I don't see anything sexual between them. I think for example, like the direction in this episode is very nice for building a very strong and firm friendship, but nothing romantic.
Sam mentioned that before, where it feels like they're trying to build a will they, won't they get together kind of thing, and you're right, it just doesn't work. That chemistry is, but them as like competent peers works really well. But anyway, everything's about to go to shit because they go back into the cabin and Murdoch has been there. There are pictures hanging all over the place, taunting MacGyver, all this sort of stuff, and that's when Murdoch busts in the door with a flamethrower.
Yeah.
And that is the end of Axminster 2.
It ends on the flamethrower?
It ends with him kicking in the door with a flamethrower.
Now, I will say, and there's someone pointed this out on IMDb, but Mac is saying something very quiet to Nikki in there. He's like, Murdoch, that's Murdoch, but I think he's dead. And then from outside the cabin, Murdoch's like, think again, MacGyver.
His pictures, his calling card. That's impossible. He's dead. Murdoch's dead.
Not quite, MacGyver!
There's no way he could have heard him say this little thing, right? But, Oh, so that's Axminster 2. Okay.
That is the end. Yep. And the touchy-feely part of the episode is over for 2 more Axminsters. We're on to the action.
You're right. But it's time for a time capsule commercial. So we got 2 Axminsters down, and let's take a pause here. Wonder how Mac is going to get out of this jam, and let's see what they were selling on TV back in 1987.
Hi, I'm Beefsteak Charlie. You're invited to my Tex-Mex all-you-can-eat barbecue. Barbecue bonanza with beef ribs, spare ribs, barbecue chicken and beef. Combination chicken and beef fajitas. Barbecue beef ribs, barbecue spare ribs, plus all the shrimp and salads you can eat with lots of Tex-Mex extras and all the beer, wine, and sangria you can drink. It's amazing. My all-you-can-eat barbecue starts at just $9.99. Come to my Tex-Mex all-you-can-eat barbecue and I'll feed your kids free. All you can eat at Beefsteak Charlie's Tex-Mex barbecue.
Okay, Beefsteak Charlie's. What are your reactions?
None of that. No Tex-Mex food was visualized or presented or discussed in that commercial.
But how about that cheesy videotape quality? Like that was someone's camcorder pretty much recording that, right? Like that was a bad-looking quality commercial.
So in Fresno, it's like 60% Hispanic. There is a strong connection to Mexico and other Latin American locations, and we have a large culture about Tex-Mex and Mexican-style food. And looking at those pictures, it's like the whitest person in 1983 heard about Tex-Mex and then just like, we'll do it. We'll do it in Saskatchewan, New York, no problem. It's that this is the most offensive thing that's ever happened on this show.
And a lot of offensive things have happened here.
Yeah, this is a show that features me. So offensive things are going to happen.
Beefsteak Charlie's was a well-known Manhattan restaurant in the early 20th century and later a restaurant chain based in the New York metropolitan area, which grew to over 60 locations in the early 1980s.
Did I really nail the location?
New York, yeah.
Yeah, oh man, I pulled that out of a hat.
Let's see, a 2018 of the sitcom The Goldbergs, so the family goes to Beefsteak Charlie's for Erica's birthday. In a 2002 episode of the sitcom Will and Grace, Will takes a group home which decides to dine at the restaurant, Beefsteak Charlie's. But yeah, so I just remember I might have went to a Beefsteak Charlie's once, as I'm originally from New York, but those commercials are pretty funny, pretty silly. Big guy with a mustache and just this really bad VHS, videotape quality of a plate of shrimp and steak. And I don't know, it's something just corny and cheesy about it, but
yeah, the whole ears of corn on the plate in the
cone.
Commercial.
Have you seen It's Cone? You know that viral video? It's Cone?
Oh, yeah, that little black boy.
The little black kid? Oh,
yeah,
that's really good. Vivian, you got to see, it's one of those viral videos. Jeff will get it to you maybe, but it's a little kid talking about corn, how much he loves corn. It's like this little 6-7-year-old kid, and he's just really raving about corn on the cob. And it's pretty funny how into it he gets. But
which is legitimately a good food.
Yeah, sure. Corn is
just
fine.
does not belong on the plate in a Tex-Mex menu. We ready for Axminster 3?
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's see how Matt gets out of this flamethrower incident.
We get into it right away because it's flamethrower time.
Flame on.
Yeah, Murdoch's going to town. And sorry, Pete's cabin. Rip Pete's cabin because this thing is getting burned to a crisp. Mac picks up a mattress and uses it as a shield, which he uses to slowly back out of the room and protect himself with the mattress, which brings us to...
Does it MacGyver?
So, can you protect yourself from a flamethrower with a mattress? Well, mattresses are just cloth and metal. I mean, there's not really much to them. Maybe some wood is up in there, and all of those things are extremely flammable. In the 1980s, there was an extremely low standard for mattress flame resistance for a pretty funny reason. People would fall asleep smoking cigarettes. So from the late 70s until the early 2000s, the only mattress safety requirement regarding flames was that you could put a cigarette on it and it wouldn't catch fire. In 2007, they updated their standards to require mattresses to be flame resistant. Now all mattresses are like that. That is still the standard that holds now. Murdoch is using what appears to be an M9 flamethrower, which were what the U.S. military used in Vietnam. And the three backpack things are gasoline, napalm, and nitrogen as a propellant. Combined, they can reach 3,000 degrees in the open flame. This bed does not stand a chance. There is literally no chance this bed protects them for more than a split second. The second pull of that flamethrower, that thing is shooting right through that bed, and Nikki and Mac are fried Nikki and Mac. And you can even see in the footage, there's some kind of gel or something on it, because you see the flames burning, but the mattress itself, I mean, obviously they're not like going to really set a mattress on fire while he holds it, but like that really illustrates as to how there's something different about the bed that there wouldn't be in a normal environment that's protecting them from it. So bed protection from flamethrower does not MacGyver. They escape. I'm waiting to see if anyone has anything to say.
No, you got it. Mac hasn't missed many this season, but there's one. He has a streak going.
That's a notable one. Yeah. They could have done a little better. A lot of times I feel, and it doesn't happen as much, but it seems like they would get Mac into a situation and they wouldn't really know how to get him out, and just kind of reach for the nearest thing. And this really feels like one of the. There was an episode in season 1 where he puts a bed frame on the bed spring and shoots it at the door like a slingshot. Does this ring a bell to anybody?
Yeah, I remember. See? In the episode Nightmare.
You're an encyclopedia. Holy cow.
Our listeners know way more MacGyver than us. Even episodes we've already watched, we've watched them more recently than some of our fans, and they still know more.
So they attempt to run down the mountain, but Murdoch, who somehow in the 37 seconds since he got here, has managed to put landmines all the way down the path. So they decide we're going to go run to Mac's truck. Well, Mac's truck has its tires slashed because Murdoch has been here for 37 seconds, which is all the time Murdoch needs to set up 87 traps. So they go to Nikki's car instead, which Murdoch has rigged with a bomb and a special little note on the windshield wiper, which MacGyver, for some reason, opens the windshield wiper and it says, "Bye-bye, MacGyver." And that is when MacGyver hears the ticking of the bomb, because it's 80s and all bombs have audible ticking sounds. So they manage to flee from the car and escape from that explosion as well. But Murdoch is now hot on their tail. He's got the flamethrower. He's got the cars have exploded or had their tires cut. There's landmines going all the way down the escape. And there's only one way forward, as Mac points out, and that is up, where he just left from Mike dying. So Mac's only path to salvation is through the literal minefield of his past trauma.
Hold on. Before we get to that, he tries to climb. He does the telephone pole. Are you going to get to that, or did you skip that?
I'm going to get to the telephone pole.
Okay.
Telephone pole is that's on their way up the mountain.
Yes. Okay.
Because when he sees that it's blocked off, he says we have to go up.
Is there any way that a mountain could be totally surrounded by landmines that someone set up within a couple of minutes? Couldn't you just go 20 feet to the left and then you're walking around the landmines?
It's too much work. Going up is obviously easier.
Okay.
So now they're on the run and they're trying to hide from Murdoch with a flamethrower. And that's when we have our second MacGyverism of the episode.
Does it MacGyver?
MacGyver goes back to his old bag of tricks, which you may remember from Season 1, Episode 6, and he uses a car battery to make a welder. So he gets a long pole, he cleverly takes the car battery out of the not exploded car with him, and they run into the forest where Mac is putting these things together. Once again, he puts a coin on a long piece of metal, hooks it up to the car battery, and just like in season 1, episode 6, this definitely works.
I'm sorry, season 1, episode 6? Is there a reason you're referring to season 1, episode 6 and not calling it by its title, Trumbo's World?
Because no, is that Trumbo's World?
Season 1, episode 6 is Trumbo's World. So maybe you want Last Stand, which is episode 7. Episode 5 is The Heist.
Hold on, let me double check, make sure I didn't write it down wrong, because I didn't write down the name of the episode.
I know he does make some kind of arc welder thing in Trumbo's
And he
World.
repairs it is Trumbo's World. Yeah. He repairs the broken piston on the generator.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have written that down. So there are going to be so many Trumbo's World echo effects.
Vivian, would you like to just say Trumbo's World? Now we'll make a cool echo of it.
Trumbo's World.
So all that welding is when it comes to this kind of electrical arc welding is that a current goes through the one piece of metal to the other, and then they like melt together or cut the piece of metal. It 100% works with a car battery, although it's not going to work for long or for very well. You're better off with 2 or 3. But I found people on YouTube doing videos of this. I found an article from Popular Science, which is a magazine, and they were writing about surviving the post-apocalypse when zombies were a big thing, and they were saying you can make a welder to repair things or do stuff this way. And then Mac uses that welder to disable the flamethrower. He cuts a little hole in it. It sparks a flame on it because, as I said, there's gasoline and napalm in the backpack, and Murdoch has to ditch the flamethrower backpack and dive away to escape, and that gives Mac and Nikki the opportunity that they need to get some space between them and the vile killer Murdoch.
Yeah, and IMDb reports that Murdoch rolls around to get the flames off him, and then the next shot you see him, his jacket is pure and clean, like there was never any fire on there. So I didn't notice it, but...
That brings us to our next Does It MacGyverism.
Does it MacGyver?
Mac realizes that they are stranded and alone on this mountain with Murdoch, and they need backup, because Murdoch will stop at nothing to kill Mac, because that's who Murdoch is. And he remembers the shopkeep down at Ellard's is on the phone all the time, like he's a teenage girl. And he was a Navy midshipman on some ship that didn't exist, and all his imaginary friends died. Mac thinks, I bet I can send him a coded message if he's on the phone. So he climbs the telephone pole, he cuts the sheathing off the telephone wire, and he uses Nikki's jewelry to touch the wire and send Morse code down the line to the shopkeeper at Ellard's, hoping that he will hear and send them some help to fight against Murdoch.
This is quite the reach, right? Like...
Well, yes. Well, hold on. This is interesting. Which part of it do you think is a reach?
Well, first of all, what's the guy's name? We don't know the shopkeeper's name. Like
I didn't write it down
probably.
either.
Probably his store, right?
Yeah, it's Ellard's store.
He's got to be on the phone for this to work, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
First of all, you need the guy to not just be doing his store business and for some reason be on the phone talking about war stories, a war which we're not quite sure he was in. But okay, but you take the science part. Vivian, do you think this would work before we even...
Yeah, I guess it will work, but I'm not sure why is Mac not like the electronic won't go to his body and endanger him. That's what I'm kind of confused.
I can answer that if you would like the answer.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Because unlike power lines, so telephone wires are just coiled copper, and the signal that is the telephone sound, your voice, travels through it. But unlike power lines, it's not continuously powered. So like if you touch power line or your outlet, you're going to hurt yourself. But if you touch your telephone line, there's not enough juice there to hurt you. But what can happen is if a telephone line becomes exposed and metal hits it, it creates a buzzing sound. This is according to the generally awesome home website The Spruce, when diagnosing, this is an old-ass article because they're talking about home phones. If you have buzzing on the line, it's either incorrect wiring or other metals touching the wires. So this 1,000% works just fine. You cut that, he's up there, and you touches her little... He was smart enough to, have another piece of metal. He's not just touching it with his hand, touch another piece of metal. The critical thing that makes this work is that the telephone line from that cabin only goes to the shop. And we know this because they say they've been calling the shop and leaving messages at the shop. So you would have to call the shop to then get up to Mac. If you were to do this outside of your house, and most telephone lines are underground, but if you did it outside your house, you wouldn't get anywhere because all the lines in your community are all going to one spot. But because this telephone line only goes to Ellard's, and because Ellard is on the phone all the time like a teenage girl, we're assuming, he hears the Morse code and recognizes through his haze of conversation that someone's trying to reach him and figures out that it's MacGyver SOS Morse coding him. This does MacGyver. But speaking on Murdoch being able to hear or see things he otherwise should not be able to hear or see, he sees Mac at the top of the telephone pole and to who, I don't know, says, "You're about to be disconnected." But fortunately for Mac at that exact moment, he slips to the side and the rifle shot just barely misses him. And that is the end of Axminster 3.
Murdoch not taking no for an answer. That would be, again, a bad end to the show. Like, Mac was just almost killed by the sheriff. Mac's clumsiness saves him right there, right? Nothing saved him. He just slips and falls at that exact second. But he should have been shot were it not for the brave Pepe Dirty Sanchez last episode. And now just his own clumsiness saves him from getting shot again.
Look, if Murdoch decides not to deliver the zinger, he wins.
Yeah. Bad guys, don't say a little soliloquy before taking out, the hero. Just do it.
Yeah, but I really love the suspension here, like during all the action in this episode. Because when I was watching, I was like, oh, so he's like already up in the mountains, and like where can he go? And I really like the way.
Yeah,
like,
and I thought
the
the tension worked really well, especially once Murdoch gets there. And there are some very cool shots coming up in this next segment where they run up to the edge and it's like looking down over. That is like I hate that, and it just like makes me tingle. I don't like that. So we begin Axminster 4. Mac and Nikki have once again managed to escape somehow, as Pete arrives at Mac's houseboat and notices all the destruction. So now Pete's aware that something's going on, and Pete, I love Pete. He's so badass. Get me a helicopter in 10 minutes. I guess he didn't need to SOS Ellards after all. But Mac and Nikki have now reached the very pinnacle of the Widowmaker. And they run to the edge and they look over, and there's no way over except to free climb down a 1,200-foot sheer drop-off to a hidden ledge where Mac had previously watched Mike fall to her death. But what are you going to do? Murdoch's hot on your heels, so they descend the mountain. And on the way down, Mac comes across the climbing equipment that Mike had left behind. That's ropes, carabiners, whatever those things that go in the rock and go bag of chalk. And that's when they use this leftover equipment to descend, and that is when Mac and Nikki run across a piece of equipment that failed on Mike, and they learn the truth.
What's this?
It's a chalk bag. It was Mike's too. Climbers use it to keep their hands dry.
What's this?
It's part of her harness.
You mean it just came off? So that's what happened, isn't it, MacGyver?
Something like that.
So it wasn't your fault?
Is that all I have to tell myself?
No. More. The truth. You were her friend. You did all that you could do.
Wasn't enough, was it?
MacGyver, you can't bring her back. Even if you could relive the moment, Mike still would have fallen.
Are you guys hearing all the MacGyvers mentioned in this episode? Because Nikki is saying it a lot. Of course, Murdoch doesn't say a sentence without starting it with MacGyver. I just wanted you to be aware of that. It is said a lot. And also, Jeff, it was Mike's equipment that failed. Remember how often his equipment would fail? Don't blame yourself. It was his fault.
Yep.
Cream me again.
Yep, and there's nothing you could do about it. Sometimes it's just Mike's equipment just fails, and she plummets to her death. Yeah.
I found it not really persuasive. Like, I think back there was an accident in the beginning. Like, it is very unlikely someone will have an equipment and commit suicide. I just think it is very unlikely, so I don't know why Nick said all of that. But the most interesting that though is that the equipment already failed Mike, but then they still have to use the equipment again, which I am not sure if it's like better to do free climbing or better to use the already proven broken equipment.
So I had a note in here in my notes to talk about this, but I forgot to do my research. So we're gonna go off the top of my head a little bit. But I believe I have like minuscule amounts of indoor rock climbing experience, maybe a dozen times. But I was really impressed in this episode with how competent all of the rock climbing stuff they were doing is. Like, you can make a harness out of the rope, and they were doing that right. And they were using all the right lingo, saying belay on, climb on, where you have to talk to the belay is the person who's holding you there. And they're not holding you, they're locking off the rope. And so I was really impressed with, like, the technical competence of the climbing stuff, because a lot of times they're just kind of going after it, but it looked like they knew what they were doing with the right knots, the right way to do it, the right lingo. And so either someone on the team did rock climbing or they took the time to do the research to do it right.
With the critical eye over here, taking a look at when they have stunt doubles and when they don't, anytime the shot is from below aiming up, it's not MacGyver, it's not Richard Dean Anderson, it's not Alyssa Davalos. And you can really start to see it towards the end of the episode here. And the same thing with Mike in the beginning. It's not because, especially when you watch in high def, like on the Blu-ray or on Paramount Plus, the shot from below is of a certain video quality, and it's the good technical rock climbing. And then it cuts to Mac on this probably 3 foot off the ground, fake rock, and it's much more vivid quality. But then, especially towards the end when they're doing the scaling down, you'll notice that the stunt doubles are always got their heads hidden. Like, no matter what, they're hiding you cannot see anything. They're just hiding their faces from the camera every time. But for the most part, it looks like their backs, but certainly not RDA and Alyssa Davalos going down any kind of a mountain here.
But there's even a point where, and this is after this, but he then rigs up, they're going to climb back up, and he puts something on the rope where you can put your feet in it and to, like, so you can support yourself as you climb the rope, and like that's high technical stuff. And so that I was really impressed by that. Also, did you, or does it say in the IMDb, look up where this was filmed?
Once again, British Columbia, Vancouver. I'll get you that details in a second.
Okay. Because there are a couple shots that really look like Half Dome at Yosemite. And Half Dome is a very famous, you're not supposed to climb on it, but it's like that, where it's just straight up in the air. And a few years ago, there was a documentary about a guy named Alex Honnold, Free Solo, about him climbing this. I have not watched it, but I've heard it's excellent. Climbing this insane rock face without any ropes
I did
or
hear
anything.
About that, yeah. Opening and closing shots of Addison Mountain or of Mount Robson, the tallest peak in British Columbia, about 300 miles northeast of Vancouver. The incredible granite cliff is the west face of Stawamus Chief, the largest granite monolith in North America, 30 miles north of Vancouver. The tall, winding waterfall is Shannon Falls, about a mile from Stawamus. And by the way, if you have to get off the top of Stawamus Chief, you could go on a relatively gentle hike on the north or south or east slopes. So you got multiple ways to get off this mountain.
Once again, if they just walk 5 feet to the right, they could just walk down the mountain.
I'm sure Murdoch has booby-trapped the entire radius of the mountain with mines. There's no way we can just walk down the side.
Mm-hmm.
No.
So, Vivian, a little Taiwan trivia for you. I have the answer here. Do you know what the tallest mountain in Taiwan is?
The Jade Mountain is like 900 something.
Yeah, so
tall.
I might be pronouncing it wrong. It's Yushuan?
Yeah, Yushan.
There you go. And it's 3,952 meters high, which is just a skosh short of 13,000 feet, which for American climbers, 14 is that's the goal to get to. There are like 7 or 8 of them in North America. That's when you get to 14, you're getting up there. But 13,000 feet is a very high place. So that's the tallest mountain in Taiwan, which is pronounced again?
Yushan.
No, I want to hear you take a stab at that.
Yushan. Yushan.
Yeah, it's good. It's very good.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Yeah.
So while we're practicing, Murdoch swings in out of nowhere. Murdoch, and how he gets a rope, well, he has rope with him, but how he gets the exact length of the rope right and all, who cares? Murdoch comes flying in all out of nowhere. He knocks Nikki to the side, and Nikki goes rolling off, and she's clinging on by a thing, and Mac kicks the gun away, and then he pulls out a knife, and he's stabbing at Mac, and he cuts Mac on the arm, and Nikki's saying, Mac, you gotta come save me, and she's slipping, and Mac is bleeding, and right as Murdoch comes in for the kill, MacGyver lifts the rope, and the knife cuts the rope, and Murdoch, not a dummy, actual Murdoch, falls.
I'm sure that's the last we'll ever see of him. Glad we got him killed. He says,
And Mac pulls Nikki back up onto the ledge, and that's the end of the Axminster.
But he says, say goodbye, MacGyver, and that is the clip I used in the not firing a single shot song and video. That's the clip of Murdoch there talking. That's like maybe his best vocal clip you could take from any episode.
Did like Murdoch cut himself or MacGyver cut the rope? Because I cannot actually see whose hand is that.
So MacGyver grabs Murdoch's rope and holds it up to defend himself, and Murdoch slashes at MacGyver and cuts his own rope and then
absolving
falls.
MacGyver of any murder, responsibility.
Like he isn't gone through hundreds of goons. I don't understand why Murdoch falls. Like, the rope's not holding him up at that point. He's standing on the ledge. Because if the rope were taut, Mac wouldn't be able to pull it. And if the rope is loose, it's not supporting Murdoch.
And what does he say as he goes flying to his death?
MacGyver.
Yeah, he lets a really long MacGyver go. It's a good 5-6 seconds. Let's hear that MacGyver right here.
Say goodbye, MacGyver! MacGyver!
We have a very brief Axminster 5 where Mac and Nikki are on the mountain, and Mac has come to emotional catharsis and returned to himself, much to Nikki's dismay, and they have a little playful banter to end the episode.
I'm glad that you're back among the living. Really, I am. I only wish you could do it with a little balance. These extreme changes are not good.
I'll work on it. Now, like I taught you, by the numbers.
By the numbers. All right. Belay on.
Climb it.
Climb on.
That's the Widowmaker. All right, we've recapped it, we've ridiculed, but now we're going to rate it.
Name's MacGyver.
Vivian, would you like to go first?
Yeah, but I think I might be biased because it's my old favorite.
All we ask is that you be honest.
Yep.
Okay, I think after rewatching it this month, I think it goes slightly less than what I thought it would be. Because when I was younger, I just loved the emotional tension, but now I think it's kind of unpractical, and I don't like the way Mac and Nick are portrayed, but I still think it's a very fun, exciting, very tension episode, and also it's nice, especially in the 80s, to show some vulnerabilities of masculinity, so I'll give it a 8 mullet.
Some good points there.
I agree with everything you have to say about it, and I do like that Mac breaks character a little bit, because I've been making jokes about how many people around him die, and it's nice to have that get thrown back in my face. The show knows what it is, and that's one of the things I love about it, and that's why we talk about it. It's very aware of what we're doing here. But the chaos of Murdoch is too much for me. It feels like they needed something to happen in an episode. They couldn't just have an all-emotion episode. We need something crazy. So why the hell not bring Murdoch in? I find all of his traps and setups to be not impressive or scary or very believable. And so, as a result, I think Murdoch's inclusion actually brings this episode down a couple notches. And I think this is a 6 out of 10 mullet affair.
Well, I do like this episode, and to me it's one of the more memorable just because, they're on a cliff and they're rock climbing and people are falling off cliffs, and that's stuck in my head. I am on a roll, or MacGyver's on a roll with me, because had a 7 for GX1, had a 7 for Jack in the Box, And I was tempted to give this one an 8, but I can't do it because it's not as good as, say, Lost Love Part 2 or some of the other really good episodes. For me, I just ding it a point because it's a little dull to watch them on the side of the mountain. There's about 45 seconds throughout the whole show where they're just on the side of the rock, and it's just a little too boring. And it's like, come on, guys. But I like Murdoch. He kind of disappears in the last 5-10 minutes. You kind of forget about him, but I guess that makes him coming back more exciting. I like Mac being vulnerable, like what you said, Vivian. I like them talking about feelings and all that kind of stuff. But this is an above average episode, and I do like it, and I've got 7 mullets for the Widowmaker.
6, 7, 8.
So, yeah, 6, 7, 8. So actually, this one's rated at 8.5 by the fans on IMDb.
Have you been keeping track of the IMDb ratings?
No, I don't keep track of them. But
that feels. I don't think I can recall any getting out of the 7s.
No, yeah, that is one of the highest. That is one of the highest ever. And this episode was included on a Best of MacGyver DVD compilation that came out at one point. So I think it's widely favorited by fans.
Yeah, I mean, the inclusion of Murdoch and Nikki make it an important episode because these are 2 recurring characters. It's obviously got some great performances in it, which makes it memorable. Mac being vulnerable makes it a little bit memorable, so it's not out of step, but like a little different than a lot of the other episodes. Beautiful shots and photography with the rock climbing, so I can see why it would get on a best of DVD.
Right. So you've got a 6. I've got a 7. Add it up, divide by 2, and that gives us
a 9.
This one's rated 7
so
out of 10 mullets.
And guess what? The combined average for the last 3 episodes, 7 for GX1, 8 for Jack in the Box, 7 for the Widowmaker. I'm taking a look here. I don't ever think we've had 3 episodes in a row that were 7s or better, and it is now confirmed. I'm looking up here. We've had back-to-back 7s, but we've never had 3 episodes of 7 or higher. So this is the strongest 3-episode run we've ever had.
And this has got to be the strongest first. We're almost to the halfway point of the season. Right. And I bet that's episode 8. There are probably 2 or 3 more 7, 8 scores in there that if you go back. So.
Oh, as far as the most in a season, correct.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that'll be interesting at the end of the year to kind of run those numbers and see where we end up because season 3. I mean, the wonderful insanity of season 1 will never be matched. But as far as quality, like season 3 just crushes it. It's just great.
And I think, Vivian, you said that too, didn't you? I think you kind of mentioned season 3 and maybe 4 as being the best of the series.
Yeah, I think we kind of see more as a TV series, just not like separate short movies broadcast every week. And I think the first 2 DVDs, when I still rent DVDs to watch MacGyver, the season 2 first DVDs, like from 1 to 8, is my favorite. I watched these 8 episodes for so many times.
All right, let's crunch the numbers now. So this is where we count up all the MacGyverisms from this episode, and we had a few. And then we also see all the time someone said MacGyver, and we had a few. So, Jeff, how did Mac do on the MacGyverisms here?
So he was 2 for 3. The flamethrower-proof bed is not a thing. But the improvised welding and the Morse code on the telephone, should you ever find yourself in a survival situation, both of those do MacGyver, and you can rely on that.
All right, 2 out of 3, still a really good ratio, and he's been great on the season. He's only missed, 1, this 2. I think he's only missed. I think I've got him as only missing 2 MacGyverisms this year. Only 2 you've deemed.
It was notable to me that there were 3. There could have been 4 if I had remembered to do the research about rock climbing. So there could have been 4, and it was notable when they hit the 3rd one that I thought, oh, there's a lot in this episode because there have been a lot of 1 or 2s.
So now, Vivian, get ready to take your guess on how many times someone said MacGyver here. Jeff, as you know, is notoriously bad at this. He's always at least 5, 6, 7 off, whether it's too high or too low. But how about you go? Well, I don't know who should go first. We have Jeff go first Jeff, you go first because you're the one more likely to make the crazy guess.
Okay, but see, every single time you tell me you go out of your way to say it was a lot or a little, it always feels like a misdirect to me. Like you're trying to get me to guess wronger than I usually guess. So I'm going to say this is going to wind up in the ballpark of normal, and I got 18 MacGyvers.
All right, Vivian, how many times do you think someone said MacGyver here?
I feel like there's a lot of MacGyvers that everyone just repeating MacGyvers, so I give it a 30.
Well, you were just 7 away, Vivian. It was said 37 times this episode.
Oh my God, that's third most.
That I think is third most. It beats Deathlock, which was of course the infamous one with Deathlock had 36 with Quail. Well, remember, Quail was said, what, 38 or 40 times? Quail was said 40 times.
I love Deathlock. I don't like anything that takes Deathlock off a pinnacle.
Of course, DOA MacGyver from last season said 46 times. But you know what? And it was said 33 times in Lost Love Part 2. But you know what? I believe this is number 2. Yep. This is the second. This tops Deathlock for number 2. So this is the second most MacGyver's ever said in an episode. Nikki constantly says it. Murdoch, every time you see him, says it. Pete gets in a few. Even Ellard has to mention it once or twice. You know, MacGyver's up on the hill.
I almost included every single one of Pete's lines of dialogue from the whole episode, and he says it.
So 37 big MacGyver. So how about that's another reason for me to enjoy this episode, quite frankly. How about the most make-fun-of-able moment? Vivian, what stands out to you as just the silliest moment of this episode?
I think it's Murdoch taking a photo of the burning ring, and it's something that is so classic.
I go with the Murdoch dummy that's going off the cliff.
Okay.
It's so obviously a dummy, and it's just like all over the place.
I feel like the Mike dummy is worse. I'm not sure, but maybe it's just because Murdoch is yelling MacGyver. It distracts me from the visual.
At least Mike has the comedies to see the die silently.
I do like Murdoch just like flame spray painting doing flame graffiti on the cabin. That is pretty bad, but I also just like, I'm going to say it's the heads turning away from the camera anytime there's a shot of real rock climbing. There's also, look away. So that's my most make fun of a moment. But that wraps this one up, guys. Vivian, it has been a pleasure to co-host an episode with you. I hope you had fun. Did you have fun?
Yes, it was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your support, and we'll be in touch, of course. And chime in with any, MacGyver facts. If you ever catch us missing something, please let us know, because we trust your knowledge maybe more than ours. But we'll be seeing you at our monthly hangouts, right? So we'll probably see you soon. Yeah.
Okay, see you soon. Thank you.
Jeff, any final words for you?
Fantastic episode. I love it when our Patreon guests join us. So if that was getting you on the fence about deciding whether or not to join, please do. It's really thrilling to me to bring new people in, and our guests have, without fail, been outstanding. And Vivian, thank you. You were excellent as well.
All right, and I'll just give a gracious hat tip to our Patreon patrons real quick. That's Mia in Canberra in Australia, an original patron, and damn fine woman out of Canberra, Australia, down under, celebrating Christmas while in the heat, apparently, which is what they do in Australia. Bo in Fort Myers, Florida, great friend of the show and trained CNC machinist. If you need any CNCing to be machined, he's the guy. Claire in what part of New Jersey, Jeff? Claire in...
Parts Unknown, New Jersey.
That's okay. Caesar from Parts Unknown, mysterious backing. We appreciate it, Caesar. Christian in Norway. Vivian right here. Thank you again. Simon in Habo, Sweden. And Simon, he thinks Trumbo's World is the best episode of MacGyver. So, Simon, you're welcome for all the mentions here. You even got Vivian saying it. And Sarah in Jacksonville, who's never seen an episode of MacGyver, but she has a strong hunch Claire Fisher's analysis is spot on, and that's why she is generously coming to the Swiss Army knife level. So we're always looking for new friends, guys, so please feel free to reach out to us on social media, Facebook, Twitter. But above all else, all we ask, really, is for you to keep coming back, because we are going to keep making fun of MacGyver. So for Vivian and Jeff, I'm Sam. And thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Peace. Rocky Mountain